Lexia. Welcome back to Lakeside Chats with Lexia. Today I am joined with Jocelyn Bulward-Bruce from the Center for Inclusive Communities. She is from Chester, South Carolina, and a 2017 Furman graduate. She then was taken to Nashville, where she studied at Vanderbilt in their divinity school. Jocelyn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your role in the CIC is and what is the CIC?
Yeah, so the CIC, I heard you say, is the Center for Inclusive Communities. Our name shifted earlier this year to the Center for Interpersonal Connections, but really the work that we do is the same. So large, like 50,000 foot view, we do a couple of different things. One, we support all of our international students through their visa process, but also support engagement, like go apple picking over fall break, that type of activities. And then we also have the Student Diversity Council, which I have the joy of advising. Currently, we have 14 organizations under the council that span from your more traditional, like multicultural, student center, racial, ethnic, cultural backgrounds, all the way to our disability rights group. We're thinking about, hopefully I'm crossing my fingers, joining the American Sign Language Club under the Diversity Council. So having a really wide-ranging view of like identity to make a vibrant campus community. Then also we have my passion project, which you are involved in with the Intergroup Dialogue program and Dense Dialogue, just having critical conversations across our differences with the goal, as I will say, is thinking about what can we do to make a community that works for everybody. Because I want to assume that we know that our communities are not working for everybody. And so what are some steps that we can take through conversation, but also through action, that we can build communities that are vibrant, that are robust, and that everyone is affirmed in their dignity and in their worth. So that's a little bit of a synopsis of what we do.
I love that last thing about being affirmed in your dignity and worth.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
So important, especially at Furman, having such a small community and wanting to be seen, I think
Yes.
is really important. So going off of that, obviously election season is upon us. Really
2
big
weeks.
time. Really
Yeah.
big time. So what would you say is important in trying to cultivate our greater community when there does seem to be quite a lot of a division, especially around politics, not only on campus, but also just beyond our gates?
For sure. So a couple of things are coming to my mind. One, I think it is Audre Lorde, and I could be wrong, and so forgive me. Somebody please fact check. This idea that my freedom and my life is bound up with yours, that we live in a space that is so hyper individualistic, where I have to be out for me and for mine, and I am important. I need my needs to be met, and that is never a question. But I also realize that that me having more than enough means that there is not enough for others. And so how can I realize that our lives are bound up in each other? I also think one thing to think about when it comes to voting is that voting is a privilege that people have had to fight for, that people have died for, that some people, like the idea that people are like are martyrs for the vote, right? And so the ballot box is not something that has been accessible. This idea that we can have a controlling interest in what our future looks like and what our policies look like haven't been available to everyone. And so making sure that we are doing what we can do to honor the people who came before us, and also to honor the people who will come after us. I once heard someone say that often we think a lot about being dutiful descendants, but what does it mean to be like space opening ancestors for the people who come after us? I think it's a really cool shift to make as we think about what type of world do we want to enable, right? What type of communities do we want to foster that work for, like, if I have generations of little ones after me and you have generations of little ones after you, like, what does it look like to care about the world that they will live in, the planet that they will inhabit? And so that's the way that I think about voting, is realizing that we are not far from each other, that our lives are bound up with each other.
Absolutely. Oh, the
Yeah.
wisdom that comes out of your mouth every time I feel like you speak.
Oh,
that
my
is
goodness.
just incredible, and really
Yeah.
looking at that next generation. So again, make sure that you have your absentee ballots requested. If that deadline has passed, make sure if you have a plan to vote, if you have a plan to get home, make sure that you definitely execute that. But moving on to the next point, especially after all of this happens, Thanksgiving will then be coming up. So I know that a lot of students will be visiting their families, lots of different conversations happening around that dinner table. So how would you, what would you suggest for students of how they can begin to navigate that conversation?
Gently, with both the people you are in conversation with and also with yourself, with a level of humility, knowing that we can't know all things, with a level of ownership of our stories, with a level of compassion at seeing the stories of others, and with this idea that we may feel far apart, but we actually may not be. And also, if we are far apart on some things, then we can name that for what it is. And that having differences of opinion and differences of perspective is not the worst thing ever. Like diversity, viewpoint diversity, intellectual diversity, experiential diversity is part of what makes our environments, again, so vibrant and so robust. And so how can we lean into that to figure out what are the contours and the shifts we have to make? Like, what are the pathways forward? What are the possibilities that could be opened up? And so one thing that I always do, and I don't know if this is the type of thing you're talking about, is I'm like a coffee drinker or a tea drinker. And so if there's like a mug that students can have, and you can have something warm, that if you are feeling like a lot of energy of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone said X, or oh my gosh, I can't believe that this came out over the turkey at the table, just have something warm in your hand where you can like pour your energy into something so that ultimately you are taking care of yourself and you are protecting your own peace as you engage with others who may be different from you. And so that's just something that I do, because I know that I will go home and I may have some conversations where I just want to, like, as some people on this campus say, like, flip a table. I may have those moments if I can have something that I can channel my energy into that just allows me to have a sense of groundedness and peace, even for a moment. I am worth that. Like, I am worth my sanity. I'm worth my peace. I'm worth my groundedness. And so what can I do to feel centered in myself? I think it's not going to, like, solve everything, but at least we can solve hopefully like that peacekeeping internal part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So make sure you have your mugs ready, everyone.
Yes. Yes.
Chocolate, cider, coffee,
whatever it is.
Happy.
Yeah.
That's an amazing tip. I think especially even with like midterms coming up and just different friendship things happening, I think that's really a great thing to just kind of balance yourself.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I think that we don't often remember that when we say that we are like caring about our communities, that we're a part of our communities too. And I just want for everyone to fully know and be okay with the fact that like you are also worthy of a calm moment. And so if everything around you is getting you riled up, maybe have like an internal mantra of sorts that's like, I am worthy of stability, I am worthy of centeredness, I am worthy of peace right now. Because I also think that some of what gets inflamed in our political moments is people's fear, our people's angers of a variety of ways. And I think what could be a bit of magic is for all of us to remember that like, I am also worthy of just like a chill moment right now. And that probably what the political force at large wants from me is to be inflamed. What the political force at large wants from me is to be really amped up about something. And so maybe my one way that I can help navigate that is to like keep my chill. I can have thoughtfulness as a core value. I can have respect for myself and others as a core value, but I'm not even gonna get to those core values if I am so riled up. So maybe a first step to combat what we would call like a polarization could be realizing that maybe this is, again, what the political force wants from us, and we're gonna be different from that, even just for a moment.
That's incredible. I feel like even just thinking to all the political ads that I've seen, I mean, I'm even receiving texts, I swear, every
all
single
day,
second.
yes.
Of this is why I'm voting for this person, this is why
Yes.
I switched from this party.
Yes.
And it can be really just mentally exhausting.
Yeah, it's like send me $16 for this and send me 32 cents for this.
Yes.
It's like what is
So I love
what is
that
happening?
concept of just taking a moment for yourself.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that everyone else is wondering, because I'm certainly wondering, how did you reach this space? Like, you seem to be very calm and cool and collected and obviously giving amazing advice around it. But were you always like this, or did you kind of have a journey into that?
No, I definitely wasn't always like this. I grew up in a household that had a political consciousness, but like my parents weren't organizers. They weren't going to things. My dad is a veteran and my mom is a social worker. And so this deep care about community was always something that was a part of our household. Both my sister and I are like lifelong Girl Scouts. And so this idea of service and just being centered in community was something that was really important to us. And I felt like I didn't really know where I would come down on policy when I got older. I think that was something that just through my times at my various institutions, but also working in nonprofit and seeing how policies deeply affect real people was something that I think cultivated what I would call like my ethics of care, which I always think flow into how we conceive of our politics. It's like our ethics and our politics there can be some space between them, but they can also help us make sense of each other. So like, for example, I was working in nonprofit in youth homelessness, and there's this idea out in some spaces that homelessness is a choice. And I went to a policy conference and someone said, you know what? Homelessness is a choice. Homelessness is a policy choice. When there are certain contingencies that are enacting policies that are against things like affordable housing or building more homes or creating the space in which builders are encouraged and enabled to do this. Of course, homelessness can be a choice. It can be a policy choice. And so being, I think, just situated along the journey of my life in places where some of those things have been reframed for me has helped me to get to this space of, oh, I can actually have my ethics and have my politics and see where they emerge. But I will also answer your question a little bit more directly. I think what you're talking about is like my sense of calm and like self therapy. Honestly.
She's got some lessons here. Yeah. So go out, be informed, and vote, and then find a good therapist.
And then find a counselor, because I think, at least for me, one of the things that my therapist and I really work through is how in all of the chaos can I be like centered in that. Yeah. And I think that whether that is family, whether that's work, whether that's relational, whether that's whatever, the same lessons can also apply in the context of the political, where there's so much chaos going around and so much desire for us to be inflamed and for us to be like little bursts of energy. I'm thinking of like the anger emotion from Inside Out. Oh, yes. Is like, if that is the goal from us, maybe not how can we like always be joy, but how can we be something that looks just different from what is expected and what drives this type of political momentum that we're in right now. And so in addition to like all of the policy ideas that have come to me along the way, I think like having a good therapist or some good friends, some good support who can help you like keep your chill in a variety of areas is always a good tip to have in your bag.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love this. Thank you. So many good takeaways that we have today. So before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to say directly to our Furman student body before they hit the polls and go out and vote?
Before you hit the polls, I said this, I think, in dialogue the other day, and I will share it here, which is, y'all, a vote is not a Valentine. And I know I'm stealing this from someone on social media, so someone please credit the original creator of this. But a vote is not a Valentine, it's a chess move. You do not have to be massively in love and like pledge yourself to a policy platform or to a candidate or to a party. That is not something that you have to do. And I actually think I've heard just from various places that actually will stop some people from going to vote. It's like, well, if I'm not in love with everything about this person or everything about this platform, then I just don't need to do that. But I think we need to reframe what voting is and what it can be, which is a vote doesn't have to be a Valentine, but maybe it can be a chess move. Like it is a long game to get toward, again, if we're thinking about shifting from being dutiful descendants to being abundant, compassionate ancestors. what type of environment do we hope for the generations who come after us to inherit? We hopefully want for them to look up to us and say, you know what, I may have made different decisions back then, but I am grateful that you had me in mind when you went to the ballot box. And so I'll be grateful that you'll have me in mind and I'll have you in mind, and hopefully we'll have all the generations who come after us in mind, deep care for them. And again, this doesn't dictate a certain, I hope that students don't hear me as saying like a particular candidate or a particular policy. You have to think about that for yourself. Yeah, you have to make that decision for yourself and lead through your convictions, vote with your convictions, but ultimately remember that you don't have to be massively in love. It is a chess move that will allow you to be a good ancestor to the people who come after you.
Absolutely. I remember that quote now. I feel like we need stickers to go everywhere.
A sticker
I think
for
that's
everything.
something that we all have to really definitely internalize as this comes up.
Yes.
And I think even like you're saying, like just building community with each other, thinking about each other and not just yourself, I think would be so important. So make sure that you all are researching your candidates, that you're knowing exactly who you're voting for. And even if it's not going to be a Valentine, then it is going to be a chess move, and you're going to make sure that you are confident in that decision. Also,
remember that politics really plays out at the local more than it does at the national.
Snaps for that.
And so y'all, please, wherever you are, wherever you're coming from, look at the policies and the platform of your local candidates, your Department of Ed, your water and sewer, your sheriff, whomever, because those are the folks who are actually going to impact your life and actually impact your community. Those are the people who you may go to the grocery store with, who are also enacting all the policies that will affect your life. So we have to think about this on multiple levels. You know, we got to be sophisticated in how we do this.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Tune in next week for a next edition of Lakeside Chats with Lexia, and don't forget to register your vote.
Yes.